Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options and Play video update. Um, so today, this week has been pretty interesting to say the least. After the way last week played out, it seemed like we were really setting up to get a little momentum back, right? We went over the setup uh, quite a bit, just talking about how important that 50-day was. We busted through it last week, closed above it, held above it, and it just seemed like uh, we were into that scenario where it was just climbing a wall of worry, which we've done numerous times over the past couple of years. Yes, there's probably still trade tensions and trade headlines expected, but we had a really nice technical breakout. Names started to wake up, participation started to increase across different names, and it just seemed like we were setting up for possibly a move back through 300, maybe even like a retest of the 52-week high. And long story short, it seemed like the market had a different idea this week, right? So if you've been following developments over the last 2 days, then it's kind of hard to not notice some of the moves in momentum names. Okay, so that's going to be anything from software, right, IGV, to restaurant stocks like the Starbuckses, to med tech names, right? Like say for instance like a Dexcom, right, or an EW, right? So it's hard not to really recognize how sharp the moves have been in certain areas, and it's starting to gain more attention. More people have been talking about it, and you may or may not be familiar with it. MTUM. It's called a momentum ETF, and it basically like tracks like a basket of momentum stocks. And while the spiders were just quickly the spiders maybe not doing a whole lot, kind of treading water above that 50-day, right? Momentum index has had quite a move this week. One of the sharpest moves that it's had in a while, right? I mean, basically, equals kind of to the same magnitude of what we did earlier in August. Yet, it's just momentum names that have gotten absolutely run over. The overall market really hasn't. Just spiders are off a little bit, but I mean, nowhere near what momentum has been off, right? And what's also interesting about this too is that it's a rotation. Okay, so its momentum is getting hit, and then value. So IWN. So this is a Russell Value Index, right? And you can see that the correlation is almost perfectly inverse on these two over the past couple days. So as basically past couple months, excuse me, and then the past couple days has been even more dramatic, right? So you can see as basically like the Russell started to the Russell value, right, started to sell off. The Russell momentum started to gain strength, and all of a sudden, in the last 2 days, the momentum fallen apart, and then the value has seen like a huge rebound on really significant participation, right? So it seems like everybody's dumping momentum, and everybody's piling into value, and it's creating like these massive, massive, massive unwinds in some of like of the top software names, right? So let's talk about Twilio, and right. So you're seeing like these massive unwinds in some of like these software stocks, which were up a ton year to date, right? Just huge moves lower. Shopify, another one, right? And like the money is starting to like rotate into some of like the value plays, like the industrials, like the energy, right? XLE is up quite a bit. Bank of America, the banks are up quite a bit, right? So it's just this really dramatic move over the last 2 days, and what's hard about that is like it's just kind of difficult to see these types of moves coming, just because things were so one side, or maybe things had been playing out in the same direction for so long. You get these types of days, get these types of weeks, and your rush to judgment is to maybe pile all into value and then dump all the momentum. But what you really want to do is maybe approach this from like a very short term perspective, and then a longer term perspective. Okay, so short term, yes, you need to manage stops, you need to manage targets, right? So if you're long value, if you're short momentum, you want to be, in my opinion, you want to be taking money off the table a little bit faster, right? Because like these are counter trend moves. Like the trend had been weak in value and the trend had been strong in momentum. So counter trend moves in a in a tape that's for the past couple of years has been a very trending tape. You want to be a little bit more aggressive taking stuff off. Yes, you obviously have to keep stops tight, so that's why with like the Twilio, when it broke through the 200 and couldn't bounce, right? There's no significant area support underneath. You kind of had to close it out. Same thing with Okta when it broke the 100A, right? There's no material support underneath. Had to close it out. But at the same time, you kind of want to stick with the names that are holding because once like the pattern starts to reemerge, right? So once momentum starts to firm up and rebound, the names that held in the best most likely are the names that are going to rebound or maybe be one of the first to like probe their new highs or put in new highs, right? So Microsoft, it has held in well. Yes, it's sold off the last couple of days, but it's still above support, still within the trend, still above the 100A, right? So like this is like a name that you want to stick with. Yet like the temptation is just to dump it because everything, all the momentum names are falling apart. But you also want to be involved once these things rebound or firm up and rebound because names that held in more likely to be some of the first ones to trade higher, maybe like recover the losses once we start to see that move back into momentum, right? And then on the opposite side, it's names that are bouncing and struggling to like break through resistance, right? So if it's like you get like the moves off the low, so like cat back through it, right? But if you find like industrials that are maybe like bouncing and like struggling to break through, then what you could be watching for is like those are the names that you maybe want to like fade, right? So like some of like these industrials or possibly some of the energy names have had like these really significant bounce, snap reversal moves, right? That are maybe running into like trend resistance. These are the ones that you possibly want to look at as maybe like a fade once that like value momentum rotation maybe slows down or starts to like move back into like the direction that had been playing out over the last few months. All right. So long story short, and really why I wanted to do this video was just it's really easy to overreact after like the crazy moves we've seen the past 2 days. But what I find and what's worked for me in the past is take like either a very short term view and manage like shorter term positions because like those are the ones with the expiration coming up, right? Like those are the ones most likely to be impacted because theta will be higher, right? You'll have a little bit more exposure in that regard. So yes, you got to manage the short-term stuff, but you also want to be, you want to be patient. You want to give things that haven't broken down or haven't busted through trend resistance, right? You want to like stick with those ideas as long as the trade still stands, right? Because you don't want to just dump it because everything's moving lower or because all of like the value stocks are rallying, right? Stick with the trade ideas as long as like the stops hold, as long as the trends hold, right? Because once the rotation starts to cool off or maybe reverse back to what we've seen, these are the names most likely to recover fastest. All right. So not a ton of earnings this week. A couple interesting ones after the close tonight. Restoration Hardware, Dave and Buster's, but a little bit lighter on the scheduled news front. So be on the lookout for possibly more swing ideas, possibly swing ideas with longer term expiration, just to kind of like smooth out some of like the higher implied volatility after the past couple days. All right. So questions, comments, I'd love to hear from you guys. If you like these videos, definitely be sure to click on the link in the description. You can follow up for more options or more information on options to play, more information on the newsletter. Have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow.